So, hello to today's Technical Steering Committee. We are talking about the Traefik extension proposed by Sebastian. We are talking about this GEP-0057, basically trying to replace the NGINX Ingress shoot add-on with a Traefik extension to have a real migration path for users that have used the NGINX in their own clusters. And with that, I would like to hand over to whoever have questions.
I would like to start with a question about the migration path. So when users enable this compatibility mode that Traefik listens on the NGINX Ingress class, they can basically follow the guide by Traefik itself. I checked it and it looks quite extensive and clear. I'm still wondering whether users will be stuck on this NGINX compatibility mode or whether they should migrate to the Traefik Ingress class later on.
I mean, it depends on what they want to do. So if they still want to use the annotation which they had used before with NGINX, then quite makes sense to use that mode. But if you do not rely on that annotation, I mean, it would make more sense to directly switch to Traefik.
And if they want to migrate from this compatibility mode to the Traefik native Ingress class, we expect that there will anyways be a short downtime, correct?
Yes.
And that's probably unavoidable.
Okay.
But even with a migration mode, there will be probably a downtime, right?
No, there wouldn't be a downtime. Basically, how it works is so you can run both in parallel, and then you switch the IP address of the DNS record, so from one Ingress to the other Ingress controller, and then you shouldn't have it.
Okay, so both are serving the same services in the end.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, got it.
I like this fact, by the way. I think that's quite good point for using this extension then if someone relies on the add-on in production. I think that's good that we can support this downtime-less migration.
Since the add-on is restricted to shoots with purpose evaluation, hopefully nobody is using it in production.
Okay. Well, if you don't expose the shoot spec and don't really use the purpose field, then it might be. But yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You're right. Basically, if you can set purpose to something else, and you figure out that something else works for the add-on, maybe someone has done it. So that's
okay. Still, it's great that we can support this replacement and the switch with minimal downtime.
okay. Since we just touched the topic, so the NGINX Ingress add-on was always also restricted to shoots with purpose evaluation only. And we never really planned to promote this somehow, so make it also available to shoots with production purpose. But yeah, do you plan to change it for this extension? And what would be the criteria for that?
We talked about that a little bit. We at some point in time we tried to plan to make that to more production ready, but first of all we want to gather some experience, because currently I was the only one which was testing it, and we hope once we get some adaptation we get more feedback. So currently I haven't faced any issue. Everything worked smooth, but I would not rely on that. I want to have some more feedback, and then if everything seems right, we can talk about that. And there we had also the discussion how we would switch. So currently we have that mission controller where we can enable it, but also can propose to make this a little bit more fine granular by exposing a feature gate, and then we could enable that per seed. So that's open, but for now in the first iteration, so we want to do the replacement of the current NGINX Ingress.
Okay, but just the plain replacement would just not touch this graduation point, I would say, because NGINX was stable also, right? So we had good feedback, good experience many years, and we never promoted it. Mainly for the reason that we, in our experience, we had also had issues with just making Garden updates. And when user workloads are exposed with it, we ran into problems where a new NGINX version was maybe buggy or just couldn't catch that. We updated it, and then productive workload was failing because people relied on that add-on. And without finer control that we never wanted to introduce for the add-on, like maybe version management or update strategy or whatnot, we just decided to restrict it only to evaluation shoots. So if this doesn't change just because it works stable, it's still maybe not good enough from this point of view or from this experience to also allow it for other shoot classes. Yeah.
So for Traefik to be production ready, we also when I got you right, we want some versioning, right? Like we do it with Falco or with some other add-on services.
Yeah, probably. Mm-hmm. But this is also why I linked Marine in the PR, who's unfortunately not here today, but he's working on similar topics, similar add-ons, so to say, for the shoots. And we probably want to find a holistic picture for all these things. Mm-hmm. We don't want every extension to define their own, what is it, Falco profile or Traefik profile. This is a bit too much, I would say. Mm-hmm. But rather some holistic picture for all of them. And then, yeah, we have a good experience also for the users.
That makes sense.
So in this slide, I would probably remove this maybe entirely from the document. So we keep it only for evaluation shoots for the reasons mentioned. And if we ever want to change it, maybe then that's a completely different story. If we want to allow it also for production or other classes.
Just to understand, what is our proposed process then? So we start with purpose evaluation, for sure, makes sense. And then we kind of align with other extension parties like Marine, Dirk, also Falco, and come to hopefully to some decision how we should do version management and version dependencies and so on, or specification, similar how we do it with the cloud profiles and so on. And once we have decided on that, then we could also do the Traefik extension for non-evaluation shoot clusters, right? Or...
Yes, I guess in the end, people that we really use this productively need some control. Like they need control over the Kubernetes updates and everything. Yeah, this is just an optional add-on. It's not like a system component, like, I don't know, Accordion is or whatever we deploy. This, of course, has to work in all cases, and we don't really want end users to tamper with the versions there. But for something like this, which is not really used by Gardener itself, but just something that you deploy on top, they probably need more control over it. And without it, we will just run into the same issues that we already had with NGINX back then in 2018-19 when we changed this and restricted it to evaluation.
Maybe this is a discussion for another session, but in the Flux extension, we also allow users to configure which version of Flux they want to get installed in the cluster. And we don't have any list of supported versions or whatever. We just generally expect the APIs to be compatible, at least the API fields that the extension use. Maybe that's already good enough for the Traefik case as well. I don't know if we need some elaborate lifecycle management for these kind of add-ons, but if you already got some experience, there's probably a good reason for it.
Yeah, I think back then it was not really about API compatibility. This was always pretty stable, I think. It was just about buggy behavior that people want to test, or they want to test upgrades up front before they decide now really change my Ingress for my production cluster. And if we don't allow them to control that, then there's no way. We just update and it will fail because they use this 1% feature, which we never can catch in our tests.
Yeah, sure. So controlling the version should be possible. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we don't need a list of supported versions like in the cloud profile. The user could just specify the version field in the extension provider config and then test upgrades upfront on the QA classes and so on.
Okay, yeah. But then, okay, of course, this can also be a strategy, but then they are also on their own regarding maybe they want automatic updates for new versions. They don't want to, yeah, I don't know. In the end,
Okay,
I would say it's a separate story. So as part of this gap, let's just not talk about it. Let's just frame it as a drop-in replacement, more or less, for the NGINX add-on. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. So for now, we just support one specific hard-coded Traefik version that's basically dictated by the extension, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good starting point anyway. So cool. Maybe the next question aligns a bit with that. So I wanted to ask about the gateway API support. This was one of the motivations for choosing Traefik as a replacement. However, you said that this is just scoped to Ingress resources for now and Traefik native resources. So if we are just talking about a drop-in replacement, we don't expect to implement gateway API support anytime soon. Is that correct?
I mean, it's a different topic. So this gap is basically about the NGINX replacement and the Ingress. And we also want to make another gap about the gateway API. But there are a lot of solutions which you can use or implement. So it's not decided. So which solution we want to have, and I think it's better fits in another gap.
Okay.
From my perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it could be in the end engine Traefik, but it could also be Envoy, or I don't know. There are so many solutions.
Okay, but by choosing Traefik, we keep our options open to support gateway API later on. Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Then I had another question about one risk you also listed, that there might already be Traefik CRDs in the cluster, or if the user already deployed Traefik there and then wants to switch to the Traefik extension. I'm wondering about whether we should handle this conflict more gracefully, like preventing overwriting the CRDs by default and requiring the user to opt in, like via an annotation or something like that, meaning they signal readiness for the extension or resource manager to override the CRD and to take over management. I'm afraid that if we just blindly override the CRDs, there might be unforeseen consequences.
Yes, but do you think that someone wants to use that Ingress controller if he already has installed Traefik himself? So if he has installed it, he can manage all. And I mean, he also has the Ingress controller. So the only thing what's probably missing is the DNS record, which we set in the control plane, the wildcard DNS record. But apart from that, yeah.
So you're saying if someone already deployed Traefik, the extension is probably of no benefit to them.
Yeah, I guess so. He deployed it for a reason, and probably he uses his own Ingress controllers. And
I'm actually not sure, because I would argue they might have already installed Traefik, so for example to test it or to run it locally when the extension is not yet there. But now we bring the extension, and now it can help them basically offload their task to us, to basically, or to the landscape operator, so that they don't need to handle Traefik anymore. And in that case, I mean, it might make sense to handle the case gracefully and not require them to first clean up everything and then reinstall everything again. But that being said, I'm not sure how many cases of such a thing will actually happen. Because if they test Traefik, it could also be a test cluster and so on. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe as a starting point, we can just say that such a migration from self-managed Traefik to extension-managed Traefik is, not supported or not tested. If someone specifically requests it, we can still figure out a way, I guess. Okay. Cool.
So what is the plan for the removal of the NGINX? Let's say we develop this extension, release it and everything. So we still support the NGINX until we drop the Kubernetes version that still allows to use it, or would we also remove it earlier?
I mean, there's no need to remove it all earlier, right? Because you can run both in parallel, so there wouldn't be any problems from that side.
Yeah, but it's, I think, security-wise and everything, it's over now, so there are no updates anymore. And if we have this replacement, that is also kind of compatible with most of the annotations, at least. Probably we want to get rid of the old NGINX earlier, because removing the Kubernetes versions that still allow to use it takes maybe years, I don't know, at least many months, probably years. And I don't know if we really want potentially highly vulnerable image in the Gardener code base.
Yeah, then we can also drop it earlier.
So you're saying the idea would be that once we have once the Traefik extension is in the proper shape, we also try to do a change on Gardener that disables the add-ons, the NGINX add-ons earlier, or
Yeah, maybe we need some feature gate so that landscape operators can control when to activate this, so that they can inform their users upfront that NGINX will no longer be possible. Please use the new Traefik extension, and then they can enable the feature gate. And then after some time, we just drop it entirely.
Okay, makes sense. Should that be added also to this GEP, or is that just the follow-up actions which we will anyway do?
I mean, there's also an issue in Gartner, which I've seen, where a drop item for the engine.
Which one is it? Can we open it?
Sorry, I was muted. I've seen in Ghana, I think there was a drop NGINX and yeah, let me look for it.
I mean, there's this issue NGINX retirement that Johannes
Ingress retirement, right?
is working on. Luckily, he's here in the meeting. So
what
if you are if you are working on that, maybe
I can do that.
I think you can sync that internally if you want to do it as part of this issue, or Sebastian does it as part of this story. But I think somebody should do it somewhere. And of course, we need this Traefik extension first.
Mm-hmm.
And once we have it, we could plan the removal of the NGINX from Gartner entirely.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it is kind of already planned, but you want it earlier than the removal of 134, which I understand.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense to remove it earlier.
Yeah, that's fair. And with the feature gated approach, I think that's also not too difficult.
Yeah, but okay, in the end, NGINX is only available for evaluation clusters. And if we say Traefik is also compatible, would we deploy it in this mode by default? Or would we enable it by default? Maybe that's the first question. Or would people need to explicitly enable it in their shoot specs? What would be the recommended approach when we register the extension in the landscape?
Currently, so far, you have to set it also in the shoot spec, the extension section, because you also need to decide which kind of Traefik type you want to run, the NGINX compatible mode or which kind of mode, or the Traefik native mode. If you want to have it in your cluster, so basically you select which controller you want to have, and then it's deployed.
Okay, got it. So even the compatibility mode must be selected explicitly. It's not on by default, so to say.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Then I guess what we just discussed with the feature gate makes most sense.
Okay, noted. Any other open questions, topics to discuss?
Not from my side.
No.
Okay. Also nothing from my side. Then I suppose we are very fast this time. I will add the minutes and you can take another look. So thank you for participating in this technical steering committee. and have a nice remainder of the day. See you.
Very
Bye.
nice.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.